All right, so welcome back once again, colleagues, to our 16th lecture session for AUE 3761 in the 2024 academic year. This is video B. So we are still busy dealing with the issue of tests of controls. So I'm dealing with the principles around the test of controls. So as I was explaining earlier in video A, test of control, there's a part of the test of controls, which is the what part. So the what part, as I emphasized earlier, it relates to what I call source of evidence, right? Source of evidence, of course, in this instance, it can also be attributed to, like in this instance, as test of controls, it would then relate to the specific control activity, right? Control activity that you want to test. So now that control activity, which is, of course, what I was dealing with in number 4, it comes in different forms. There is what we call authorization, isolation of responsibility, segregation of duty, supervision, physical controls, access controls, and all that. So now I was trying to emphasize to you that with, for instance, authorization, how do we confirm authorization? Now, authorization is confirmed when we identify signatures on documents. That is if we are dealing with a manual system. In a computerized environment, that is if we have prerequisite conditions that needs to be satisfied before processing further. So if there's prerequisite conditions that should be satisfied before a system could process further, it implies there's authorization in place, or there's authorization controls that have been embedded within the computer system. Then isolation of responsibilities, it's there to ensure accountability. Okay, so if we want to know who is accountable for what, we can only do that if there's isolation of responsibility. Why? Because we look at the results and we can trace to the person that was responsible for that particular activity, right? So isolation of responsibilities, you find it in instances whereby there's separation in terms of departments' responsibilities. Finance deals with finance, so they are isolated only to deal with the finance activities of the organization. Human resource department and payroll, they're only confined to handle anything to do with personnel and remuneration or payroll, right? But not necessarily finance, right? So that's isolation of responsibility. Then segregation of duty happens within one confined department. That's where we have segregation of duty, what is known as separation of duty. I think, yeah, that's this. So segregation of duty and separation of duty is one in the same thing. Okay, so it's just basically to say, okay, if we are dealing with the warehouse section, for instance, right? So we know that maybe customers are being received physically in at the stores. So now we should not just allow one person to take orders there, depending, of course, on how busy the organization could be. So we can then separate, or we can have segregation of duties where we have maybe 4 people that are taking orders from customers. Why are we doing that? What is the core purpose behind segregation of duty or separation of duties? Just to ensure, accuracy of processing, right? So to avoid and to minimize errors in processing. That's the whole point behind segregation of duty. Then supervision. How do we know that there's supervision taking place? Because supervision means that the process is being facilitated by a senior personnel. How do we test? If we are to perform a test of control, how do we test that there is supervision taking place in a particular process activity? Well, one of the ways to do so is by observing the process as it is being carried out. For example, they will tell you in the system description, when employees enter the warehouse section of the organization, they need to use, maybe, for instance, they are tagging cards. Like there's a tagging system or 10 style system that they need to use in order for them to gain access to the warehouse. And that process is being facilitated by a security personnel. Now, it means there's, yes, supervision, but then how do we test whether that supervision truly exists? We have to go and observe as employees clock in and out from the warehouse area. That's the only way to be able to test if there's supervision taking place. Physical controls. How do you know that there's physical controls? You have to inspect. right? Inspect, or you inspect documents, you inspect an environment, a place, or you inspect assets, something physical in form. You can actually inspect. So in essence, for physical controls, we identify them through inspection. Access control, it can happen in two ways. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys. So with access controls, it can be observed, sorry, identified in manual system as well as in a computerized system. So in a computerized system, it is called logical access controls. Logical access controls. Most of these things I'm teaching you, it's coming from chapter number 5 in your textbook. Dealing with the concept of internal controls, right? In the audit notes. So now, this one, the access control, like I said, you find it in both manual and in the computerized system. So in the computerized system, it's called logical access controls, whereby one is required to use a username and a unique password, right? Which should be uniquely designed. Very important. Then in the manual system, meaning somewhere where there's no need for a computer involvement, we find access control usually if there's control access in the form of a presence of a security guard, something like that. Then document design, it's about, security features on a document. That's what we are checking for with regards to security, with document design. So it's about security features on the document, and usually documents should be sequenced, and usually again, documents should be that's sequenced or pre-numbered, and there should also be multiple copies generated. Very important. So meaning to say, if we don't have multiple copies being generated, it means there is no flow of documents, right? Something like that. So that's with regards to document design. Security features, the documents should be sequenced or pre-numbered. There should be multiple copies that should be generated. And there's one other control about document design that I'm just trying to remember. Multiple copies, sequence, and there's another one. It's just skipping my mind, but this is the last one here that you're supposed to look for when you're inspecting a document. It's skipping my mind, but anyways, I've mentioned the majority of the things that I feel you really need to know here. So even as you read through this document, especially from the part where they are dealing with the feedback, most of the things I'm trying to explain to you, you would identify them better as you go through this. So I may not necessarily read this word for word with you guys right now, but at least I've tried to summarize most of the content that you'll find there. So anyways, before we go into the question, let's start off with the required section, because that should always be your starting point. So in the required part, they are asking you to refer to the working paper D, entitled System Description of a Computer Equipment Sales. Now, just by looking at that, and then I go back to my business cycles. This tells me that it's something to do with sales, so it has to do with revenue and receipt cycle. And then what is the required asking you to do? They want you to formulate tests of controls, which you will perform to test, notice the manual as well as the automated internal controls applicable to the receiving and processing of customer orders. I've got notes on these things, but okay, I'll share them with you. But I wanted you to understand that, remember, with the business cycle, it has got stages, functions, right? So the specific function they want you to evaluate in this instance, it has to do with receiving and processing of customer orders. So for 15 marks. Now, mark allocation should guide the number of procedures you must give. So you take the 15 marks, divide it by 1.5 to give you the number of procedures that you should give out. So in this case, it's how much? 15 divided by 1.5. That's about 10 audit procedures that they want here. Same thing here. So technically, we're looking at about approximately 20. Because here they are saying refer to working paper E entitled Master File Amendments for New Customers. They want you to do the same again. Formulate test of controls to test the manual as well as for the automated controls applicable to the master file amendments for new customers. Now, what is happening? These are two separate questions right there. These are two independent questions. So now let's quickly go to the first one, which is working paper D, right? So the client in question is called CompTech. CompTech is involved in selling of computer equipments. So now let's have a look at the content that we have been provided with. We are told here that CompTech's main business is doing what? Selling computer equipment to various clients all over South Africa, as well as installing and maintaining it. So if there's installation and maintenance taking place, it follows to me that revenue is coming not only in selling computer equipments, but even in servicing of these computer equipments, right? Now, this working paper only deals with the sale of computer equipment. So meaning to say, the revenue element about this organization that we're focusing on is the sales of computer equipment. So when I look at that paragraph, colleagues, what I pick up from there, it's background information telling me what this organization is involved in. Then when I proceed further, now we're looking at what I call the focus area or the problem area. So this is the problem area. I'll call this P1. Why problem area? Because we want to identify in the system description of this particular stage in the revenue cycle, what control activities do they have? That's what we're trying to establish there. So now we are told CompTech sells computer equipment to account holders only. Oh, okay. What do you mean by that? Customers who are registered as current account holders are provided with a unique username and a password that enable them to place orders electronically on CompTech's website. Okay, the ordering process consists of two important steps. No problem. Before we go far, we want to just identify for ourselves what control activities do we see from there, right? You'll find the same things in the solution, but let me just try to also help as we read so that we can make sense of what is happening there. So number one, they mentioned something about account holders. Now, being an account holder, you need to have what? There's something about a unique, a current, okay, you need to be registered. Okay, for you to be an account holder, it means you are a registered customer on the company website, meaning to say there's a registration process here that is followed. Now we want to understand on the registration process that is carried out, what fields are they that you need to complete? And on those fields, we want to test, okay, what kind of controls would they have in those respective fields? But another thing I can pick from that, they mentioned something about logical access. Why logical access? Because I noticed they mentioned something about a username and a password that one needs to have to access the platform or to access the order platform on the company, on CompTech's website. So there's username and password that one needs to use in order for them to gain access. So what am I doing? As I'm identifying these details, I'm trying to help you to identify the what. That's what I'm trying to help you there. So if you know the what, you think now, how am I going to evaluate whether someone is a registered account holder? How do I confirm whether somebody is a registered account holder? How do I verify that? That's where you then think of the how. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Right. And then, of course, okay, so they mentioned something about unique username and password enable them to place orders on Comp's website. And I want you to notice this is a computerized environment, right? and it's happening in real time. Why there's a website? So if you're online, normally information gets processed on in real time. Excuse me. But then now let's look into the process. We're still going to come back to this. So now, step one, what do? Placing the order on Comtech's website. Customers who wish to place an order can gain access to an electronic order request on Comtech's website by entering what? A unique username and password. Now, that to me is a computerized control, which is logical access. We need to test this. How are we going to test this? We're going to use invalid test data. Meaning to say we need to enter invalid username, invalid or fictitious password, attempt to place a request, order request on the system, and see, or verify whether the system would reject to process further. That's what we're going to do there. And then once access is granted, the customer enters the what? The account number, which consists of first 3 alphabetical characters of the customer's name and 4 numerical digits. Already they are giving you further controls, right? So I can see something about the account number there. And concerning the account number, what do you observe? They mention something about alpha controls. What else? They also mention something about, where do I get this? The alpha controls, because they're saying that the account consists of first 3 alphabetical characters. So that means there's alpha controls, right? And of the customer's name and 4 numerical digits. Oh, so that's numeric controls right there. Right. And then we continue. If the account number is accepted, meaning to say if it is valid, what does the computer do? The computer generates a sequenced order request that the customer must complete. So if it's sequenced, to me, that's another control. There's a sequenced order request that is generated. Now, it means I need to check, I need to test the sequencing of order requests. How am I going to do that? By inspecting the previous orders that have been successfully completed. So I'll do a sequence check. That's what's going to happen here. Right? What am I doing? I'm planning my answer. That's what I'm doing right there. So already I know concerning the account holder, there's a procedure to perform. Concerning logical access control, that's another procedure. Concerning the account number, that's another procedure. Still dealing, of course, with alpha controls, alphanumeric controls. Still, those are procedures. Sequence, order request generated. I'm going to perform another procedure. So we've got 1, 2, 1, 2, approximately 3 or 4 procedures already just by looking at this information that we've just read. Why? Because this is evidence. These are existing controls we can evidently pick from the system that we can then evaluate, right? So it's very, very important. Now, let's continue. The computer system requires the customers to complete all the required fields on the electronic order request. So what does the computer system do? It requires customers to complete all the required fields. Where? On the electronic order request, such as inventory item code. So now that you're an account holder, notice it's a systematic process. So first of all, you need to become an account holder. That's all that is happening right from within this paragraph. It's all about just making sure that you are a valid account holder. Now that you're a valid account holder, what do you then do? You are eligible to place an order. So now, when you're placing the order, let's find out. Computer system requires that the customer to complete all the required fields on the electronic order request with the inventory item code, inventory description, quantity, and all that. So when I see this, it's a document in the system. I'm going to have to inspect whether it does display that kind of information. All right. So I'm going to just indicate here an electronic order request. Electronic order request. All right. Now, there's a reason why I'm writing electronic order request. We're going to come back because there are fields here that they pointed out about. So inventory item code, it should be numeric. Inventory description, it should be alphabetical. Why? Because it describes the kind of goods you're buying. Quantities should be in numeric. So all these fields, they will have controls embedded in there. So it means for instance, okay, I'm just going to try and abbreviate. So I'm going to call this IC, item code. Oh, sorry, inventory item code. And then I'm going to call this one ID, ID standing for inventory description. And then for the other one, that is the quantity, which is just going to be represented by Q, right? With these ones, I want you to pick up something. On the inventory item code, let me call it IIC, I think, to make it easy. So with the inventory item code, it's a field which has a control in it. What control? It's a numeric control. You cannot enter a non-numeric inventory code. It doesn't make sense. All right. Some inventory codes, yes, they might consist of both alpha and numeric characters. Depends. But let's find out. Once the customer has completed all the required fields, he or she should click the submit icon. All right. And then what happens? A confirmation page containing all the details of the order appears on the computer screen for the customer to review before clicking the accept order icon. All right. So you're going to have to reperform this process, obviously, just to see whether there's a submit icon that it would bring out and whether it allows you to, to verify the accuracy of your order. Now, as soon as the customer has confirmed the order, what happens? The order request is automatically sent to the electronic order mailbox. You're going to have to test. That's a control again there. Very important. That's another control, confirmation email. Right? So they're saying once the order is confirmed, what should happen? You should receive a confirmation email. I need to test whether this is the case. Does it make sense, colleagues? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
If you look at this and you look at one of your previous year tests, the question is very much similar. Very much similar. I think it was if I'm not mistaken, maybe test 4 or test 3 of 2023 or 2023 there or 2022, between the two. There's a question, but it was about something else, not of course a case where customers are ordering goods as such, but I think it was more of a booking system. They were booking tennis courts or something like that. If you look at this, it's a similar context. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm explaining, but I think if you go through lecture 14 somewhere there, or is it 14 or 12 somewhere there, it will help. You can pick up what I'm talking about right now. Right. So now, what do we see here? So the first thing, because we need to try and make sure that we make sense of every paragraph, right? So I'm going to try and separate this paragraph from this. Because the first one, it was just about account confirmation. Yes, this is all about account confirmation, this paragraph. So it's problem area number 2 on its own. And then I'll call this one problem area number 3. Problem area number 3, what is happening is ordering. So we have got controls we have identified in the order system, right? Something like that. And then we go to step number 2, which has to do with upload and finalize the order request on Comtex ordering system. So now that you have received a confirmation email, there's a part where there is an upload and finalization of your order request. Now, as soon as the order clerk receives an electronic order request, he or she uploads the order onto the ordering system. How do you know that these guys are doing this? How are you going to evaluate? How are you going to verify that the order clerk, upon receiving the order request, they upload the order onto the ordering system? How are you going to verify that this is the case? That's because that alone, it's a control, it's a process activity which you can test whether it is truly happening. All right, we're going to perform a control procedure on that. After the electronic order has been uploaded onto the system, the ordering system performs what we call a limit check to confirm that the customer's account is not in arrears for more than 30 days. Do you see a limit check? That's a control activity. The first control activity is upload of an order request. Second one, that all this as I'm putting them, it's still defining the what. I'm still defining the what. right? I've not yet performed the procedure. All I'm doing is planning my answer because I want to identify information of value in the scenario. That makes it easier for me to answer the required. So upload of an order request, there's something about it that I can test. And then number two, limit check. Limit check tests that I would need to perform, but of course using invalid test data, and then of course and very important, the limit check test for accounts that not in arrears for more than 30 days. So what would you do? You make sure that the account is in arrears in 30 days when you want to test this, and then of course you exceed the limit and to attempt whether the system would reject to process further, right? And then now if the account is in arrears, what should the system do? It should block the customer's account so that no further orders can be processed for the customer. The customer's details are then referred to the credit department, where the credit manager notifies the customer of the current situation. If the account is not in arrears, the ordering system automatically accesses the inventory master files to check the availability of inventory. Okay, and then so again, what is happening? This is just basically processing of the order. That's what's happening here in this paragraph. So that's problem area number 3, which is what I've already indicated there as well. So sorry, this is problem area 4 now. Yeah, problem area 4, not 3. So, and it has to do with upload and finalization of the order request. But continuing further, after inventory availability has been confirmed, the ordering system performs a limit check to confirm that the current sales transaction and the customer's current account receivable balance do not exceed pre-established credit limits. So again, besides the limit check, is what they call credit limit checks. Credit limit tests to be done. Right. If the credit limit is not exceeded, the order is processed and automatically sent to the warehouse for further action. If the credit limit is exceeded, then the ordering system automatically blocks customer's account so that no further orders can be processed for the customer, and the customer's details are then referred to the credit department, where the credit manager notifies the customer of the current situation. What an interesting scenario, guys. What do you guys think? Do you notice we have identified quite a lot of detail in the context of what in the context of the what part? Are we together?
Yeah.
So now it's about that time when we can begin to try and use this information to formulate the procedures. Is it fine?
Yes.
Okay. I'm supposed to be jumping into another class. Okay, let me do this. Right. All right, because of the interest of time, so what I need you guys to do, based on the information that I've given you, in the sense of identifying the what parts in these scenarios, I want you to think of ways in which you can test these sources of evidence, or some of it I would call them control activities, as it were. How do you test, these tests of controls? For example, an account holder should be registered, isn't it? So what are you going to do to test whether this is the case? You're going to attempt to register as a customer with, by entering fictitious or invalid, details, like in terms of name, contact details, and all that stuff, right? To verify whether the system rejects to generate an account number on the system. I'm just giving an example that you could use, for instance, to test whether this exists, like whether for you to be an account holder, you should be registered, but using invalid test data. And then with logical access control is an example. What are you going to do? You are going to, you're going to attempt to access the order system on the company's website by entering invalid user name and password to verify or to determine whether the system would reject processing further. That's what you're supposed to do there. right? So, and then you can do for the rest. And then what I'll do is I'll carry on from this question. Then I'll also do the other question because I want to make sure that at least 2 sessions we cover on the test of controls. And then in the other session, I'll deal with substantive audit procedures as well. And then we do an exam question paper together after that. Thank you so much, guys. I don't know if there's any questions before I bring this session to a closure.
No questions.
Okay. Thank you. I'll upload this video recordings on YouTube and then I'll share it to you guys in the groups. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right. Sure.
Bye.